Is this thing on? Good morning. Well, that was fun. So, let's begin by pausing for a moment to take a few breaths together. So, as always, if you will, exhale first and take a deep breath in. And let go. Together, let's take another deep breath in and let go. And one more time together, taking a deep breath in, we let go. And so this morning, my talk title, or our collective talk title as across CSL, is Better Together. And immediately it brings up for me the fact that we are currently not together. That in these strange and consistently changing times, circumstances keep pulling us apart in a way. And I believe that in some really strange way, the world around us is continuously pushing us to pull ourselves apart or be apart from each other. Politically, we're becoming more divided. COVID is causing us to have to be separate from each other. And here we are trying to broadcast from the center and continue to keep our community together while we're apart. Because there truly is something powerful in connection, in the overlap of being together, in the power of being in community. And, I grew up studying the Bible, growing up in my household, and the words of Jesus continue to cycle through my mind this day, in the idea that we are, where two or more are gathered, there I am also. And we know that the I am presence is God, is spirit, is source, is potential, is more than we can understand. And when we come together in community around a purpose, to focus around an idea as groups, something more becomes available. And anyone who's listened to me talk before knows how fascinated I am by the work of Lynn McTaggart and the ideas of the power of 8 that says, anytime we focus on an idea at the same time, something more becomes available. A greater healing capacity, a greater sense of connection opens up. So that idea of where two or more are gathered tells me that whenever we come together as individuals who are then merging into some sort of a collective, something more emerges from us. Hello again. I think you can hear me now. Let's start over. I'm going to move this. I have a new microphone on, and I'm going to just situate myself a little bit. So, I think I'm crackly, but we'll work with it. If you will, let's begin with a few breaths. So, exhale first. Let's take a deep breath in. And let go. Together we take another deep breath in. And we let go. One more deep breath in. And we let go. And so this morning, the idea we want to cycle around through our time together is this idea that we are better together. This is our theme here at the Center for Spiritual Living in Santa Cruz, and this is the theme across CSL for this week, that we are better together. And I find this to be the perfect topic for right now. As I look out into the world, as I look at our politics, as I look at COVID, as I look at the fires spiraling around us here in Santa Cruz, that there is so much going on that wants to tell us we need to stay apart. Well, this is fun. Today is an interesting day. Let's not begin again, but let's continue. I look out in the world right now and I see so many reasons to think that we need to stay apart from each other. COVID is telling us we need to stay 6 feet apart. that our politics tell us that we cannot hear across boundaries. That there is so much in our nation and in our world that is telling us that we need to be apart from each other right now, that we are separate from each other, that we're different from each other. And I really believe that this topic, Better Together, that this is really, I think, the message we need to be exploring right now, not only as spiritual people here at Center for Spiritual Living, but as a nation. How can we be better together? How can we be more than we have been? You know, last month we talked about freedom a lot. And I shared this idea that perhaps we need to move from an idea that freedom is about me and my individual rights to freedom being about our collective, about our interconnectedness, about the ways that our choices impact each other. And that our new definition of freedom has to be something about how we support life, how we support our vision of a world that works for everyone, how we support each other. And how's that now? All right. Let's take a deep breath, shall we? Breathe in. And let go. The point that I really want to get to today is that there is this idea that anytime we come together as a group, anytime we come together around an idea, something more becomes available. Think about a rope or a tapestry that's made up of a whole significant number of individual strands. Each one individually might have its own weaknesses, it might have its own flaws, it has its own individuality. But when wrapped together, all those individual strands of a rope become something incredibly strong. And all of those strands of a tapestry create an image. They become something more that is greater than the sum of the parts. And I really believe that that is, in a huge way, the call that is emerging in our world right now. That the more we seem to be called to be separate, to be fighting from our different sides, that what I really believe the conversation that's emerging in front of us is how can we be better together? I feel like so much of what is emerging in the world as the problems and the conditions that we're looking at, whether it be the environment, whether it be the disparity of oppression and racism, whether it be our politics, so much of it stems from this idea of the rugged individualism of the American psyche. That we think that, in a way, we have a very me mentality. And even in science of mind, many of us have been taught to really focus on ourselves as the center of the universe. And I think that spirituality for really thousands of years has told us, go into the cave, meditate, contemplate, go within. And I believe that the call right now is for us to begin to look for our spiritual connection in the collective. And to do everything we can to begin to look for our commonalities, to be looking for the places where we overlap, to be looking for the places that we can come together and that we can be more as a group, that we can be more as a society, we can be more as a nation when we are together than when we identify ourselves as being a bunch of separate individuals. That I believe that there is a call rising up in the world for us to begin to focus on the good of the collective, on the good of the environment, on the good of the species, on the good of all. And that in order to get to a place where we're focused on the good of all, we really do have to do the deep work that's coming up in front of us collectively to look at what's not working, to claim that Black lives do matter, to claim that the environment matters, to claim that individual people's rights matter, so that we can lift each other up, because I believe that if we ever want to see a world that works for all, it's actually going to take everyone. It's going to take lifting everyone up to some place of equity and equality so that each person has a place at the table, so that each person's voice is valued and willing to be shared, to be heard, to be cherished. Because there's a world in front of us that we must build if we want to continue to live on this planet and survive and thrive is in the ways that we have been seeking to do for so long that has actually been causing so much harm around us, that it's time to reconfigure the world. And I really believe that if we look at the world as a tapestry, if we look at the world as a great puzzle, then it really is that each one of us is a strand. Each one of us is holding a piece. And if we believe that there is only one of us here, and that one is God, and that one is reflecting and refracting and showing up into reality as each one of us, then each of us is a unique and perfect perspective, a slice of God. Each one of us holds a unique idea that is necessary for the emergence of what is next. You know, I've always had this dream that perhaps what if the next phase of human evolution is for us to begin to conceive of ourselves as a super collective. That each one of us in our individuality is an individual, unique expression of God. Each one of us is a unique individual being. But each one of us is also part of a cell, or a cell of a greater whole. You know, the human brain is made up of trillions of little cells. Each one is individual, relatively similar to each other, has its own uniqueness. But when they all come together and work as one thing, something greater than the sum of the parts emerges. And what if the next phase of our spiritual evolution, of our conscious evolution, of our societal evolution, is for us to begin to build a practice and a perspective of looking at humanity not as one human family, but as one human organism. That if we start to seek our oneness, not only spiritually, but also recognize that our oneness is part of our deep interconnection. If COVID-19 has taught me anything, it is that humanity is so connected that anything can spread around the planet rapidly. Whether it's a pathogen, or a thought, or an idea, or a way of doing and being, that change can happen instantaneously, that change can happen overnight, that the entire way that we do things could be flipped upside down and we could do it all differently. And right now we're doing that by default, but what would it look like if we did it on purpose? What would it look like if we began to rise to a place where our collective good was the motivation for our individual movement forward, for our prayers and for our desires? You know, our Buddhist brothers and sisters would offer us the recipe of the metta prayer. That anything that you want to pray for yourself, word your prayer in a way that it includes the most life possible. If you've been evacuated from your home in these fires that surround us, pray for everyone who's being evacuated. If you're struggling with an illness or some struggle in your life, rather than praying for the healing or the relieving of your own suffering, begin to pray for all people who are touched by a similar experience. Because in that prayer for the collective, you include yourself. But we know that something more becomes available when a group of us focus on the same thing at the same time. And so if I take my prayers and expand them into the collective, then whatever it is that I'm focusing on is now being participated in by a multitude of members of consciousness. And I really believe that it is in the coming together of the two or more that we really are better together, that something more becomes available. I think that that's why in Science of Mind we so encourage our people to pray with practitioners, to pray with each other. Because when we come together in mind, in prayer, when we speak truth, and when we hear it, and when we speak it, and when we share it, it becomes more. It becomes vibration, it becomes reality, it becomes a shared experience. And there is a great turning in front of us And I really believe that all that we are seeing that appears like separation, that appears like division, that appears like divisiveness, is actually a great call from the heart of the earth and from the heart of humanity for us to begin to ask the question, can we be better together than we have been apart? And much of the divisiveness and much of the separation is calling forward movements of unity. In the division of racism in this country, people of all walks of life have risen up and began marching for weeks and months to declare that Black Lives Matter. Out of our division, we are rising towards a unity. And let that be the thing that we're searching for. Let that be who we are seeking to be. You know, I've been contemplating this idea recently as moving towards this talk for this week. There's a word that comes from the Zulu language, from African philosophy, and I'll probably say the word incorrectly or pronounce it wrong, but the word as I know it is Ubuntu or Ubuntu, which simply defined means I am because of who we are. That I am because of who we are, that because of our collective, because of who we are, because of who we claim to be, I exist in service to that. That I am a result of the collective, that I am a result of the community, and I am also a participant in it. And to me, this idea of Ubuntu, this idea of saying, I am because of who we are, invites us to live from a place of purpose and service to something that is greater than ourselves. Greater than the I am, living in service to the we, in service to us, in service to the collective. Looking for ourselves in our community, looking for ourselves in the other. To me, this idea that I am because of who we are mirrors this idea where two or more are gathered, there I am also. What if we live in service to that awakening that only can happen together? What if we start to realize that the high call of our evolutionary spirituality is to begin to, almost in a way, activate the power of our collective mind, the power of our collective focus? We in New Thought have been saying for over 100 years now, wherever you place your attention, more of whatever you're looking at will show up. Well, it turns out that if you look somewhere with somebody else, there's more power there. There's more focus. More can be seen. There's now two perspectives. And the more perspectives, the more angles we have, the greater truth and the greater reality we'll actually be able to see. And in order to live in the emerging world and the tides and the changes and the movements that are coming in front of us in the coming days, I really believe that we are going to need to access a greater mind in order to rise to new levels of thinking and engage new thoughts in order to actually build a world that works. But those ideas, those new thoughts, are only going to come collaboratively. They're only going to come collectively. We have to recognize that each one of us is a strand of the great tapestry that we're weaving together. That each one of us is a piece of the great puzzle that is lying in front of us in shambles. And in order to find order and in order to find unity, we have to begin to look at the places where we overlap, where our collective brings forth more than any one of us could bring forth individually. That the future is about all of us. The future is about life. The future is about coming together around ideas of deep love and looking for God in each other and finding a way to live in service to the collective. Because I personally believe that what we are seeing is the beginning of the birth of the collective mind of humanity and a call towards deeper unity and a more cohesive and symbiotic way of living with each other and with all of life and with the planet. So we have to learn how to be better together. And let us make that our spiritual practice. Let us make that our call. That true spirituality in these coming days is about who and what we can awaken as a collective, and less about focusing on ourselves and more focusing on each other and living in service to life. So if you will, take a breath with me and let go. And if it's comfortable, close your eyes as we just breathe into a space of remembering that there is indeed only one life, that this life is unfolding, living and breathing and having its way throughout the entirety of the universe, unfolding every life, every when and everywhere, everyone, God and only God. And we recognize that that power is activated, that that power is awakened, that it lives and breathes in each one of us. But when we come together, when we gather as two or more, when we come together as a group around an idea, when we remember that we are better together, the Spirit of the living God wakes and something more becomes available. And so let this be our call for spiritual evolution, for the evolution of the consciousness of humanity, that we begin to move towards the activation of the greatness that is available through our collective heart, through our collective mind, and through our collective capacity. Because all together, something greater than the sum of the parts is seeking to express itself through the body of humanity here on planet Earth. Let us participate and activate its unfoldment, always remembering in gratitude and in joy that there is a power for good in this universe that is greater than we are, and it guides evolution, it unfolds history, and it pulls time forward. Let us surrender to it and allow it to move through us and live our lives in service to it. And so let us participate fully so that we can be better together. And so it is.